How's it going, everybody? We are coming at you with a new type of video. We are going to be taking the 12-team format for the College Football National Championship that's going to be in place in 2024, and we are applying it to seasons in the past. And we're going to focus on seasons that had a split national championship or maybe a controversial national championship, or any season that there was a reason to believe that the person who was the team that was named national champion might not have been. So we're going to start with 1997. In the original history, we were in what they called the Bowl Alliance / Coalition era. That's where all the major bowls decided to kind of forego their usual lineup and try to put the number 1 versus the number 2 team in a game to settle all the bowls except for the Rose Bowl. It wasn't that they didn't see the value in it. It's just that they were contractually obligated to put the Pac-10 champ and the Big Ten champ in that game. And it just so happens that the number 1 team in the nation was Michigan, who was the Big Ten champ, and the number 2 team in the country was Nebraska, who was the Big 12 champ. So this game didn't happen. Michigan ended up beating co-Pac-10 champion Washington State, and Nebraska beat Tennessee in Peyton Manning's last game. So we had a split national championship. Well, we wouldn't have had this problem if we had a 12-team playoff in place at that time. So why don't we do it? We are going to put this to the test, and we have taken the 2024 12-team playoff format, and we've put it to the 1997 AP rankings. We're going with the AP rankings, obviously. So we're going to decide who really was the national champion in 1997. And by we, I mean me. I'm going to hypothetically pick the winners of each games based on what I think is going to happen, and that's where the debates happen, and that's where it's fun. So here's the format of the playoff. Top 6 highest ranked conference champions are going to get an automatic bid or an automatic place in the playoff. The top 4 of that 6 will get a bye past the first round. And then they're going to take the remaining teams and they're going to seed them after that. The first round is going to be played in the higher seeds home field. And then the New Year's 6 bowls, they're going to host the quarterfinals and the semifinal games. And then the national championship will be at a pre-selected location like it is today. So here's how it played out in 1997 for the conference champions. Michigan, Big Ten conference champion. They were ranked number 1 in the country, undefeated. They're going to be the top seed of the tournament. Nebraska, the Big 12 conference championship, beat Texas A&M in the Big 12 championship game. They were undefeated. They finished second, so they're going to be the 2 seed. Tennessee slid in after Florida beat Florida State. They were a 1-loss team that beat Auburn in the SEC championship game. They ended up being ranked 3rd, so they're going to be the 3rd seed. And the 4th seed and the 4th highest ranked national or conference champion is the ACC champ, the Florida State Seminoles. 10-0 going into that last game against the Florida Gators. They lose that game, so they are ranked 4th with that 1 loss. And then the other highest ranked champions at that point, first, this is where it gets a little interesting, UCLA. Now, UCLA and Washington State were co-Pac-10 champions that year. They didn't have a conference championship game to settle it. The Rose Bowl ended up inviting Washington State to play Michigan, but that was their choice. UCLA was ranked higher. So for the purpose of the tournament, UCLA is going to get the 5th seed as the Pac-10 champion, and that's actually going to make a difference as far as who they play and where. Colorado State's going to be the 6th highest ranked team, finishing 18th in the AP poll. So Colorado State, not Georgia. Georgia finished 12th in the AP, but because that 6th conference champion gets in, Georgia is going to be out. And then we're going to get the other teams seeded as it goes along. The matchups are going to go as follows for the first round. Colorado State, the WAC champion, is going to go to Pasadena to take on the Pac-10 champion, UCLA, in that 5-12 matchup. 6-11, Penn State is going to go to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators. Kansas State, the 10th seed, is going to go to Chapel Hill to take on North Carolina. And Ohio State at 9 is going to go to Pullman to take on the Washington State Cougars. So here we go. First round. Now, this game actually did happen. The 1998 Citrus Bowl. Penn State played Florida. Florida beat them 21-6. I'm going to stick with that score, even though it might be a little different because they're going to be playing in the swamp this time. But still, this is an easy one to pick. Florida did beat Penn State at the end of the year. Colorado State at UCLA. The Bruins are going to get to play in the Rose Bowl after all in this scenario. And by that, I mean their home stadium, the Rose Bowl. Colorado State and UCLA were both hot at the end of the year. The Bruins had won 9 straight, and then they had that 10th win over Texas A&M in the bowl game. The Rams were winners of 8 straight. The Bruins, I think, are going to overpower Colorado State in this one, so they're going to put up a good fight. But at the end of the day, I'm picking it by a couple of touchdowns. UCLA 27, Colorado State 10. Kansas State at North Carolina. Now, this is a tough one. The Tar Heels finished 10-1. Their only loss coming to the ACC champs, Florida State. Kansas State finished 11-1. Their only loss coming to Big 12 champion Nebraska. It's Bill Snyder versus Mack Brown, a legendary coaching duel. Yeah, Mack Brown was the North Carolina coach before he went to Texas. Now, in the original history, both teams rolled their opponents in their bowl games. So this one's probably going to be the best game of the first round. And what I'm saying is going to happen is K-State is going to pull this one off. They're going to go to Chapel Hill. Michael Bishop is going to be the difference maker, and he comes through for the Wildcats, and we see our first upset as the 10th seed knocks off the 7th seed. K-State over North Carolina, 17-14. Ohio State at Washington State. The Cougars were better in 97 than most people give them credit for. They'd be hosting Ohio State. And as much as I would love to see Michigan and Ohio State in the next round, that's not going to happen this year. The Buckeyes actually lost a close game to Michigan, but then Florida State just boat raced them in the Sugar Bowl 31-14, while Washington had Heisman candidate and future NFL bust Ryan Leaf. Now, most people know Ryan Leaf for this moment.
Don't talk to me, all right? Knock it off!
But he actually was a really good college quarterback. In fact, he was believed to be the first overall pick over Peyton Manning at one point. The home team is going to win this one. Washington State over Ohio State big, 31-17. Now, as we get into the quarterfinals, we're going to start seeing these games hosted at bowl games. Now, I didn't really have a really pattern or design for these bowl games. I just kind of randomly assigned them to the games. So, the Sugar Bowl, Florida State is going to be playing UCLA. And we mentioned before, in the original history, Florida State blew out Ohio State in this exact Sugar Bowl, and UCLA barely gets away from Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. However, the difference here in this game is going to be momentum and talent. Florida State has something to prove here. This is going to be their first game after losing to Florida at the end of the year, and they are loaded with talent on defense. Travis Minor, Peter Warwick, and Chris Weinke on offense. The Bruins, they're going to be able to hold their own against Florida State on offense, but they're not going to be able to score much. And Florida State's talent proves to be the difference maker. The Noles go into the semifinals as the 4 seed, beating UCLA. Now, this one is going to be a rematch. Peyton Manning, once again, matching wits against Steve Spurrier, who he never beat in his entire career at Tennessee. The Gators rolled into Knoxville earlier that year and beat the Vols 33-20. Tennessee wouldn't lose a single game after that, including the SEC championship game on their way to a number 3 ranking in the AP poll. Florida, on the other hand, dropped the game to LSU and Georgia that took them out of the SEC championship game, opening the door for Tennessee. However, they still managed to beat Florida State. This one is going to be a battle. Tennessee is loaded on offense with future Hall of Famer and nationwide pitchman Peyton Manning, also Jamal Lewis, Cedric Wilson, and Peerless Price, while Florida counters with Doug Johnson, Fred Taylor, Jaquez Green, and Travis McGriff. It's going to be a high-scoring game, much like they did at the beginning of the season. Tennessee's going to get the better of them this time. The big win in the SEC championship game, the fact that it's on a neutral field and it being Peyton's senior year, the Vols are going to take this one 35-31 over Florida in the Fiesta Bowl. The Rose Bowl, Nebraska and Kansas State. This is going to be a rematch also from earlier that season. Nebraska was good And I mean really, really good. Tom Osborne had also announced his retirement at the end of the season. So this was extra motivation. And in the original history, they absolutely boat raced Tennessee 42-17 in the Orange Bowl. They put 56 points on Kansas State over that year. So this one's a no-brainer. The Huskers by a lot. And the Peach Bowl, Atlanta, Georgia. Washington State is taking on Michigan. Now, this was a tough one. And I have to tell you that in the original history, Washington State and UCLA shared the Pac-10 championship. So the Rose Bowl picked Washington State, who lost to Michigan by 5 in the Rose Bowl. Well, this ain't the Rose Bowl, and Washington State has already got a game under their belt with a win over Ohio State. Ryan Leaf is going to play out of his mind, and Heisman Trophy winner Charles Woodson is not going to be enough to take out the Wildcats this time around. Washington State pulls off the upset as we see a number 8 seed take out the number 1 seed in the quarterfinals. Cougars over the Wolverines, 31-21. Now we're getting to the semifinals, and we are going to the Orange Bowl. And this is actually a repeat of the original 1998 Orange Bowl, Tennessee and Nebraska. Like we mentioned earlier, Nebraska beats Tennessee 42-17 in the original history. I don't think that an extra win for Tennessee changes anything other than making the game probably a little bit closer. It's still Tom Osborne's last season, and Nebraska is still a dominant football team. Nebraska over Tennessee, 38-24. In the Cotton Bowl, Washington State versus Florida State in the semifinal game. The Fighting Ryan Leafs are coming into this one fresh off a win over top-seeded Michigan. They're in Texas against Florida State, which is kind of a true neutral game, but the experience of the Noles and the coaching is going to make a difference in this game. Florida State takes Washington State in the Cotton Bowl, 31-24, setting up the national championship game. Florida State versus Nebraska. These two teams have history against one another. Bowden and Osborne went head-to-head in the Orange Bowl 2 years in a row in 1993 and 94. The Noles took both of those games, including one of them that got them the national championship. They also got them twice in the Fiesta Bowl, 88 and 89. Now, the build-up to this game is going to include a lot of the history. They're going to be showing clips of the old games. However, the Cornhuskers are still playing for Tom Osborne. It's his last game. Both teams are talented, and because it's for the national title, this one is going to be a classic. Comes down to the fourth quarter, one possession game, but it's not going to come down to a kick. Nebraska is going to hold off Florida State to give Tom Osborne a national championship before he retires. They win the national championship game over Florida State, 31-28. Now, well, that's it for the video. Like and subscribe. Please comment. Let us know how we're doing. I love learning things in the comments, so if I got anything wrong historically, let me know. Feel free to comment on anything you want to comment about for the video. We love hearing it. Thank you so much for the support we've been getting so far. I really appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.